Hey everyone, Will here. So for today's video, we are going to be analyzing the California Gold Rush. That means we're going to be going over all aspects of this event, including the details that led up to this event, the details during this event, and the details at the end of this event. So without further ado, let's begin. So the California Gold Rush was a race to find gold in the land of California between the years of 1848 and 1855. So the story behind the hidden gold deposits in Northern California begins 400 million years ago, when California laid at the bottom of the deep blue ocean. Underwater volcanoes deposited lava and minerals like gold onto the ocean floor. When tectonic plates came into effect, all of these minerals, including gold, rose to the surface level and eroded. The surface level gold was then carried by downstream water into gravel beds alongside old rivers and streams. Because these deposits of gold were the easiest to reach, these were the deposits that gold miners tried to reach first in Northern California. The discovery of these easily accessible gold deposits all started when a carpenter and sawmill operator named James W. Marshall first found gold in the American River in the town of Coloma, California on January 24, 1848. At the time, James was constructing a sawmill for John Sutter. What he did not expect was to see a shiny metallic rock in the river. When James brought the metal up to John to be tested, they soon both realized that it was in fact gold. After realizing this, John Sutter became determined to keep this discovery a secret, as he was trying to build his own agricultural empire. The main concern he had was the consequences of having thousands of people enter his land in search of gold. Despite John Sutter's efforts to keep the news secret, the word of Marshall's discovery soon spread all across the United States and the world. Matters got worse for Sutter when San Francisco newspaper publisher Samuel Brennan had confirmed the news. It was only a matter of time before Brennan and several others began to open stores selling gold prospecting tools. As this was happening, several newspapers began to report on the discovery of gold in the American River. On August 19, 1848, the New York Herald became the first major newspaper on the East Coast to report the discovery of gold. Then, on December 5, 1848, United States President James Polk confirmed the news in a heavily publicized address to Congress. As this news made its way to the streets, groups of people looking to mine the gold, later called the 49ers, had begun to make their way into Northern California. Within virtually no time at all, John Sutter's business plans were ruined. His workers quickly abandoned him in search of gold. All the while, his land was ransacked and taken over. By the mid-1850s, over 300,000 people had made their way into California from both the United States as well as from other parts of the world. During all of this, the population of San Francisco quickly went from 1,000 people to a staggering 25,000 people in the span of only 2 years. On their travels, the 49ers faced a great deal of hardship. Many died as they traveled across the country and across the world. At first, many of these 49ers traveled by sea. Many of the 49ers traveled by sea from the East Coast. Typically, a sailing journey from the East Coast would take approximately 4 to 5 months to complete. Another sailing route many of the 49ers took was sailing to the Atlantic side of the Isthmus of Panama. From there, the 49ers would take canoes and mules and travel through the jungle, finally waiting for ships sailing towards San Francisco. Additionally, there was a route to California through Mexico. Many 49ers in the United States opted to travel across the California Trail. Although each of these ways of travel were different, each provided very high levels of danger for travelers, stemming from shipwreck to typhoid fever to cholera. Because of this, many travelers died on their journey and never saw the sight of gold, much less the sight of California. As the 49ers made their way into towns like San Francisco searching for gold, they also started looking for shelter, and they found it in the form of wood shanties, abandoned deck cabins, and tents. In reaction, supply ships started arriving in San Francisco and the nearby area to provide supplies for the ever-growing population. Many of the crew members abandoned these supply ships after arrival, as they began searching for their own gold in the American River. Therefore, many of these supply ships were repurposed into taverns, hotels, warehouses, and stores. One of these supply ships was even repurposed into a jail. As the city expanded, however, many of the abandoned supply ships were simply discarded and used as landfill. Once the 49ers arrived in Northern California, they began mining for gold. The best way to find easily accessible gold in the river was to pan for gold. The process of panning for gold entailed sinking the pan into the river and shaking the dirt out of the pan to reveal any gold. Another commodity hiding within the river that many of the 49ers found was silver. Although silver was less valuable than gold, it still nevertheless had worth to it. By 1850, towards the end of the gold rush, the majority of easily accessible gold had been found. Because of this, many 49ers turned their attention to driving out foreigners in order to get more of the easily accessible gold that still existed. One such way of driving out foreigners was the foreign miners tax of $20 per month. That was passed by the newly formed California state legislature. Adjusted for inflation, $20 then would be equivalent to $620 today. Some 49ers from America also launched organized attacks on Native American territory. This drove a lot of conflict between the miners and the Native Americans in these native villages. Unfortunately, massacres occurred in their villages, with the majority of Native Americans being outgunned and slaughtered. Out of the surviving Native Americans, many faced starvation since they had lost access to their food gathering areas due to many of these attacks being done by some of the miners. A book written by novelist and poet Joaquin Miller, Life Among the Modocs, captures one such attack carried out by a group of miners on Native American territory. Once all of the gold was extracted and sold towards the end of the California gold rush, the gold itself was used for many different purposes. The majority of the gold was sent to New York City brokerage houses. Much of the gold was also stored within California banks as well, where merchants could exchange pounds of gold for paper currency. It is estimated that approximately $80 million worth of gold then is equivalent to $2.2 billion worth of gold today. $80 million worth of gold then was sent to France by many of the French prospectors and merchants who collected gold from the miners themselves. Overall, the California gold rush made California perceived as a place of new beginnings, where a lot of luck and a lot of hard work could help you get rich fast. Unfortunately, however, some of these perceptions were disproven, as the majority of wealth earned from the gold rush went to the merchants who sold the mining equipment rather than the miners themselves. Thanks for checking out our video. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more additional content. I'm really hoping to make more history content like this, and your support means the world to me. Thanks, everyone.